Hey, what's up everybody? Lawler here with more Rocket League news, and today we're covering the NA power ranks for week number 2, and these are getting harder and harder every single time. And as always, if you guys enjoy the content, easiest way to do so, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up, as well as hit subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you want to support me directly, easiest way to do so, all the social medias that are displaying on the bottom, you can find easily in the description down below. Make sure you guys go give those a like and follow as well. We've got week 2 of the power rankings for your top 10 in North America, and this is getting more and more difficult. Before I get into this, I'm trying to debate how I want to weigh things. It seems like there is a lot of weight, obviously, in the regional events, mostly because they're done over 4 days rather than just 1 day like the grid. I think the grid is still a good way to kind of give us some head-to-head results as well as talk about notable matchups. But ultimately, I think that regionals is going to be weighted more heavily than anything else. And I feel like the players put a lot of weight into that as well. Also going on with that, I'm still using some of the preseason results to kind of determine this until we get some more weeks through. I think the biggest thing that I'm waiting on is the finalization of the first regional to determine how these things play out. So again, preseason results still matter a little bit, but ultimately it is going to come down to regionals and then the grid as a backup. I don't really weight the field because there's still a lot of teams that don't really play in it. They have a bigger preference in playing in an hour of scrims than they do in the field over the course of a month to get a couple $1,000s. So again, a lot of focus is going to be on regionals and the grid, but primarily regionals because of the consistency over the weeks. Before I get into the top 10, there is a lot of honorable mentions of teams. I'm going to always try to use the 10th place spot as kind of that on the bubble area, because there is so many teams that are through like 8-9 to, I guess, 12 to 16 or whatever you want to call it. It's so competitive, and there's so many teams that move up and down. 10 is just going to be kind of on that most recent results that I think can solidify and may just become that gatekeeper team, for lack of a better phrase. But again, this team that is here has shown good results in the grid this week. They have also shown good results in regionals this week and made me eat my words. So without further ado, the number 10 spot is going to be KC Pioneers. I made some bold statements about them, and they used it as motivation like they said they were going to, and do a fantastic job this week. Not only in the grid having notable results and making it into the playoffs in the top 8, but then they also qualify pretty convincingly in regionals as well. So KC Pioneers doing a fantastic job to bump into this, and obviously notable teams, you're talking like Plot Twist, Pittsburgh Knights, Frontline, Nefarious, Crimson Wings, Continuum, Jamal Jabari. There's, again, so many teams that could be in this spot depending on our results, but teams that have the ability to compete in the grid as well as regionals are going to get the nod just because I can get more results out of them rather than just this is how you play on one day. This was kind of a tough one because KC Pioneers did lose to Plot Twist, but they ended up beating E United, who I had higher up in the ranks. But then you go over to the grid, and KC Pioneers end up beating Omelette and Xset, two teams I used to have in the power ranking spoiler there. And then they end up doing okay against G2, where they do take a game off, but you're looking at the results, and it's 4-1, 2-1, 3-2, 3-2. So 2 1-goal games at the end as well. So KC Pioneers put up a pretty good fight, and honorable mention, obviously, to Memory, doing a phenomenal job with that defense and really tying it together. Great addition to Pioneers. He's been looking really good. Still want to watch more Beast Mode. How is he going to develop as a young gun? I'm interested. At number 9 is going to be the Peeps. A big performance from them. 3-0 in regionals, dominant performance, highest game differential in their group, and wins against Xset, Sonics, and Rogue. 3 very major notable wins. They do go 0-2 in grid, losing to Xset and Charlotte Phoenix, but the big thing to note with the Peeps is something that I've tried to kind of talk about but haven't really elaborated on in too much detail. And it's going to be that some teams are going to perform in better situations than others. And in this case, it's the format. There may be a circumstance where the Peeps really enjoy the fact that they play increasing competition the better they do, or it kind of neutralizes based upon results. 3 major wins over notable rosters in regionals. I'm really excited to see how they play next week as that continues against the other top 8 teams from the other group. And then at the same time, yes, the grid has not been their place. You can't take out the fact that they do really well in regionals, and the teams that they're beating to get there are very notable. So Peeps, massive shout outs to you guys. Obviously, they're putting in a ton of work and trying to figure out how it's going to perform. I think my favorite thing out of all this is watching Gyro play offense again. I talked about this on stream, about how Gyro always felt kind of uncomfortable to me on defense from what I saw. Especially in early weeks of RLCS in the past, it just looked like he wasn't excited to be in that situation. I could be totally wrong on this. But when he's on offense, it brings me back to the DreamHack Montreal, the clutch game 5 kind of Gyro. So, again, Gyro, I love seeing him up on offense, solidified with Illusion, who's doing a fantastic job of locking it down. And AJ is playing a more ones-oriented style is what it feels like, where when you watch him on stream play his ones mechanics and he just goes off, it feels like that's translating really well because they're doing a really good job, and maybe this is the focus Moopy has been helping out with, is finding a way for them to create more space for themselves so they can go for these opportunities. Either way, it's been looking great, peeps. Big eye on you next week and how you guys perform at regionals. Hopefully you do well, because I think you guys are trending in a really good direction. Number 8 is going to be version 1, and this one is taking a drop from 6th place into 8th with a -2 result. Also, for teams that are not previously in the top 10, I'm just going to have out of top 10 because I don't want to create this like arbitrary list of 10 to 16 and try to do that. So, because if I do that, then I might as well just rank all of them, and I'm trying to avoid that because there's too many. So, with version 1, they're just dropping down. They do still qualify for regionals 3-1. They ended up losing to, if I have my notes, they lost to G2, and then they lost to G2 again in the qualifier match in the grid. They ended up dropping to lowers and playing another speedy, fast roster in Alpine that looked really hot this week as well. So version 1 just taking some losses from some notable teams and some other ones that have had a really hot streak this week. So version 1 does drop down, still plenty capable. It'll be interesting to see on how they perform in the second half of the first regional. Sitting at number 7 right above version 1 is Alpine. Came out guns blazing. Team I've talked about in previous videos about how their confidence was the thing that I was always a little worried about, and it seems like Mystic has had a really big impact on that. Just from the outside perspective, it looks like he's been able to talk about his personal experiences, or what it feels like, situations that he's been in, and they can rely on that, especially with a younger team. But they have moments where they have players that look like Mist with the ability to control the midfield and then put on the pressure with the high mechanics. Magic Bear got a lot of the focus, but my eyes have been on Percy and Jordan, actually. Jordan primarily has really stepped up, and I think, and really tied this team together, but they play as if they have no consequence. They just don't let up ever and overwhelm. Big wins over version 1. They also, if I can find my notes, 3-1 in regionals. They lost to Envy, but beat Pittsburgh Knights and Omelette in sweeps. They also made the quarterfinals in the grid with wins over E United, V1, and the loss came to Space Station Gaming, another super notable team. So, again, big wins, notable losses, or quality losses as people like to call them. So, again, Alpine doing a really good job of stepping it up. This is the Alpine I wanted to see, and we're getting to see that potential. Next up is going to be Sonics, who are making a big jump from 10th all the way to 6th. I was curious last week and had them rated a little bit lower because I didn't know if it was a fluke or not, but the involvement of J-Russ has been a fantastic one, and they continued to progress farther on in the bracket and have consistent results with that. You're talking Sonics is 3-1s in regionals so far in week 1. They did lose to the Peeps, but everybody lost to the Peeps, and then they beat Xset, so they move above them as Xset drops out. And then they also make quarterfinals in the grid with wins over Alpine, who's right below them, similar to how Alpine's above version 1, and Plot Twist, eventually losing to Rogue. And you're going to see a trend here. So, again, Sonics, J-Ro's been a good addition, solidified on offense. I think it makes Sathu a lot more comfortable. It takes a lot of pressure off of him. Shock continues to dominate that backfield as well as move it up. And just more offense out of Sonics in general. So it's been a unique addition, but it is working, and one that I wanted to wait to see. So we've seen it now 2 weeks in a row. Sonics looking good. At number 5 is going to be Rogue, taking 1 game drop. And again, you're starting to see a trend, but Rogue, a team that still has really good wins, but they are taking notable losses. And all the teams above them moving forward are going to be teams that have beaten them. So kind of a spoiler there, but Rogue, 3-1 in regionals as well. Lost to the Peeps. Again, everybody lost to the Peeps. Beat Plot Twist. Very similar to Sonics, except for Rogue has the head-to-head over Sonics. So very similar in that regard. You're talking, though, in grid. They tie for 3rd in the grid, and their notable loss comes from G2. G2 did sweep them, but I don't think it tells the full story. You got 2 OTs, and then the last 2 games, G2 just came alive, 4-0 and 3-0, and shut them out. So the biggest one there is G2 did hold them to 1 goal in that series. That's a big difference maker for a high-powered and high-energy offense like Rogue. So, again, going to have to kind of figure out how that's going. I'm sure Corrupt G's got some things up his sleeve with the help of the rest of the team. But, again, going to have to bounce back in that. Maybe it's just an off day, but either way, they make it to the semifinals, tying with Energy's placement. But still, regionals going to be the determining factor. I think more than anything, needing to see what happens next week is going to really help with this. But again, road consistent results, notable wins, and their losses coming from top tier teams. At number 4, and this one may surprise a little bit, is going to be NRG. Some people may agree with this one. They are going from 1st down to 4th. So -3 in their change. NRG still 3-1 at regionals, do lose to Envy in 5. Really, really good match. But in regionals at the same time, it looked like Justin was playing with his food and they looked comfortable. Really exciting games to watch how confident they really looked. Squishy getting more impactful on offense with demos and stuff, reminiscent a little bit to Rizzo. But you see him go for goals a little bit more often in comparison. They do tie for 3rd in grid, like I said, and they do end up losing to Space Station and getting a win over Envy. So I had some tough questions with this one because Envy does end up losing here in the grid, but in regionals, which I think weighs a little bit heavier, Envy takes the win. So they are neutral right now in that regard, but Envy does have better results consistently in the grid as compared to NRG, where like Envy has 210 points, NRG has 110. So a pretty big point difference in that regard. And even though some things are neutral, I'm going to go over the consistent results. And I'm trying not to weigh the preseason results too heavily now that we're a couple weeks in. And this is where I had a hard time, is whether I wanted to put NRG or Envy on top. I think I'm going to take the weight of regionals a little bit more. In 3rd then, and this should come to no surprise with where NRG is going to be Envy. Envy, a team that has the 3rd most points in the grid. Obviously, right now in regionals, they're all pretty much tied because they can't get past a certain point. But they are 3-0 in regionals, not dropping a single game, with wins over Alpine and NRG. So 2 very big notable wins on their way. And that's kind of the benefit of the teams that play and go 3-0, is they're playing other RLCS teams or top 8 teams, as compared to ones that go 3-1 and may get kind of like a gimme game, even though everybody at this point is super close and anybody can win anything. So again, Envy I think is looking consistent, looking strong. Mist and Atomic have been working super well together, and Turbo isn't the one that has to just play defense and play cleanup. He is also getting involved on offense and putting some things away. So good pressure, all 3 in rotation, looking extremely strong. Curious on how they're going to change their foundation against some of the teams that they struggle against. I think Space Station is a good counteract to them with the way that Space Station challenges immediately. They usually send 2, one for the initial and then one for the follow-up, which stops a lot of these really high-powered teams. But again, having to be creative, I think the demos on offense are kind of what separate. I don't see as many demos from Envy, and I'd have to go back and look to see if I'm wrong on that stat, but it just doesn't feel like the demo as much, and I could be wrong. At number 2, making a huge jump, and part of the reason why these other teams are dropping down, is going to be G2 going from 5th all the way to 2nd. Team House is back. They are looking phenomenal. All the boys, including Jazza, are back at the house, and that camaraderie, that very minimal delay in the communication. Chicago on East Coast ping, it just is such a difference maker for the mentality, and these guys look better than ever. I think part of the reason why, and I've been trying to figure out what it is about the Team House other than that LAN environment that helps so much, but it quite honestly could be the communication and the ability to have that in person. These guys, like when I watch them play peak G2 or the G2 that I know is they're capable of, you see every player involved in what their role, I guess, is, even though they all kind of interchange. Rizzo comes into offense, goes for a boost tonight, goes for a bump on goalie. At the same time, JNaps for Chicago passes at midfield, puts a phenomenal shot top right, and unless you're pre-jumping, you can't save it. And to me, I feel like that communication, almost instant gratification, needs to be there. Or it could also be like they talked about on the talk show for ESPN Behind the Wheel today with Shogun, because they knew that this next season was going to be the longest, the most grueling, the most matches. They don't want to sit out on the tournaments because there's a lot of money during the offseason, but they also aren't putting as much weight on them. And that's possibly what it could be, is they decided to leave the house because they wanted to relax and kind of refresh a little bit. Yeah, they'll play in the tournaments because they're there and it's money, but we're not going to put as much effort into them. And by all means, I think G2 is still trying when those tournaments came, but the fact that they left the house and tried to kind of maybe refresh could be a thing. I'm kind of pulling straws here, but I do think it's a pretty good talking point from the ESPN esports show that happened today, and could very well be a circumstance where, yes, the offseason doesn't look as strong. Yes, we have to take that into 8 weeks of not looking the greatest, but they come in first week of regionals, grid is ready, and they just come here to dominate. So now that the RLCS X is in full swing, G2 is giving it their all. They're at the house, and they're looking fantastic. So again, G2, show me what you got in the regionals next week. I am looking forward to your matches. I'm going to be glued to the screen, and I look forward to see if you can reclaim number 1. But at number 1, and an obvious one of that, I've talked about this throughout the week, is going to be Space Station Gaming. Hard to argue with this one. They were second last week, jumping up to first place. This team looks absolutely dominant across the board. The addition of Redos, wasn't sure I was going to fit in. And as he said in his own interview, it shows. He has so much confidence with Sypical behind him because Sypical just enables him to go even more aggressive than he already does. And he has the reliance in Sypical behind him to pick up the pieces if things fall apart. And it shows. Super aggressive, in your face, challenges, plenty of mechanics from all the players. And it doesn't matter who it is, someone is going to punish. This team is impeccable. The ability to adjust and adapt. They take this game to a true chess match with the ability to adjust and adapt throughout the series very quickly on. And you're seeing hints of that in Peeps as well, so credit to Moopy. But the team is doing a really good job of not only consistent results with the most in the grid. They have a victory, 351 points. Next closest behind them is G2 at 301. And then they're also doing well on regionals, sweeping the competition with wins over United and Kansas City Pioneers. And then most recently, a second place finish, losing to G2 in the grid. So top performances, considered top 3 almost every single time, looking absolutely dominant. So Space Station, number 1, it's got to be a great feeling for you guys because this goes back to league play where you guys were able to take it until the regional championships where G2 stole away. It is neck and neck, G2 Space Station. I need more of it. Let me see more of you guys play, especially with how you guys are both on form right now. It's just been great Rocket League. That is going to wrap it up for me today in the power rankings, and a difficult one at that, and it's only going to get harder. Curious to hear what you guys have for your list. Drop those down in the comments below, and we'll take a look at those and maybe compare in the future. But if you guys enjoy the content, as always, make sure you guys give it a thumbs up, as well as hit subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.